Good morning, Little Masters, and welcome back to today's Tolkien Times. I'm the Man of the West, also from the Prancing Pony podcast. And with our break from poetry on Fridays this series, I'm glad to bring in some poetry here on Thursdays as I read through and discuss the poetry and songs in The Lord of the Rings. Now, last week we read the various versions of The Road Goes Ever On. Today, let's go to another of Bilbo's originals, at least according to the Fellowship of the Ring, where we're told that the words of this song were written by Bilbo Baggins to a tune that was as old as the hills, and he taught it to Frodo as they walked in the lanes of the Water Valley and talked about adventure, with a capital A. Here is the song itself. Upon the hearth the fire is red, beneath the roof there is a bed, but not yet weary are our feet, still round the corner we may meet a sudden tree or standing stone that none have seen but we alone. Tree and flower and leaf and grass, let them pass, let them pass. Hill and water under sky, pass them by, pass them by. Still round the corner there may wait a new road or a secret gate. And though we pass them by today, tomorrow we may come this way and take the hidden paths that run towards the moon or to the sun. Apple, thorn, and nut and sloe, let them go, let them go. Sand and stone and pool and dell, fare you well, fare you well. Home is behind, the world ahead, and there are many paths to tread, through shadows to the edge of night, until the stars are all alight. Then, world behind and home ahead, we'll wander back to home and bed. Mist and twilight, cloud and shade, away shall fade, away shall fade. Fire and lamp and meat and bread, and then to bed, and then to bed. Now, I want to take a look at each of these stanzas a little bit. In the first one, you'll notice that the joy and excitement of exploring is keeping them going. Yes, there's a fire and a bed waiting at home, but hey, we might encounter something totally unique to our own experience, something that nobody else has seen if we keep going. And so we're not tired at all. In fact, don't even stop at all these pretty things. Past the trees and the flowers and the hills, just keep going. Now, in the second stanza, the walker or walkers seem to be more focused on the possible destination, or I don't know, maybe it's more accurate to say focused on their current path. They're turning down the various hidden paths, right? They're ignoring those paths, knowing that they're still going to be there in the future, tomorrow. There's sort of a determination here that's more focused than it is in the first stanza. And by the way, a quick explanation on the line, apple, thorn, and nut and sloe. Hammond and Skull's Reader's Companion to The Lord of the Rings tells us that apple, thorn, and nut and sloe are representative plants of the English countryside: crabapple, hawthorn, hazel, and sloe, which is also known as blackthorn. Walter and Graham Judd's Flora of Middle-earth says the same thing. These are all plants that you would see a lot of in hedges and along roadsides in rural England. Now, in the third stanza, although the walker is still journeying at the end of day, right, edge of night, stars alight, it's their journey home that matters now. It's time to leave the world behind and point ourselves towards home, to food and to rest. Now, interestingly, when we studied the first version of The Road Goes Ever On from The Hobbit, we looked at the annotated Hobbit edited by Douglas A. Anderson. He cites two possible inspirations for Tolkien for the Road verse, but as I read these, I couldn't help but wonder if they're more an inspiration for this song. Now, the first was a short poem from one of Tolkien's close friends and a member of the TCBS, G.B. Smith. It's the first of his two songs on the Downs, and it was part of A Spring Harvest, a book of Smith's poetry that Tolkien edited after Smith's death in the Battle of the Somme. This is the road the Romans made, this track half lost in the green hills, or fading in a forest glade mid violets and daffodils. The years have fallen like dead leaves, unwept, uncounted, and unstayed, such as the autumn tempest thieves, since first this road the Romans made. Both he and John Ratliff in the History of the Hobbit, though, suggest that there's an even closer parallel with a poem from E.A.F. Geach that she wrote in 1918 called Romance. It ended up reprinted in a volume of poems for children published by Basil Blackwell, and it was on the page right after Tolkien's own Goblin Feet, the poem that he'd rather disown. But you be the judge. Does this sound more like The Road Goes Ever On, or does it sound more like this walking song? Round the next corner and in the next street, adventure lies in wait for you. Oh, who can tell what you may meet round the next corner and in the next street? Could life be anything but sweet when all is hazardous and new round the next corner and in the next street? Adventure lies in wait for you. Anyway, folks, thank you for joining me for this week's Third Age Thursday. We'll continue looking at the poetry in The Lord of the Rings for the rest of Series 7 with more Hobbit tunes to come next week. Check out patreon.com/Tolkien Times to learn how you can support this show, get an ad-free feed, join my content council, and more. And join me again tomorrow on today's Tolkien Times for another Fandom Friday. If you're watching this on YouTube, please like and subscribe. Please follow or subscribe in your podcast apps and follow @Tolkien Times on all your social media. Finally, as Faramir says, go with the goodwill of all good men.